and it is finally time. It is here. The final 12 is available. Man, I've been waiting for this for a long time to go ahead and talk about this one, guys. BC, I'm going to have you go first on this one, big guy. What is your thoughts, and did they get this right?
They did, because there is no Alabama in this. Thank God. I'm sorry. I as somebody that for
I don't
years,
like Clemson though. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that's fair for sure. But just as somebody that for years has just heard nothing but Roll Tide everywhere I go, it's like it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's such an awful sound. But but no. Aside from that, though, like I would definitely agree. Clemson for sure is an interesting pick in this one. But yeah, overall, it's a good group. I'm definitely excited to see some new blood, some of the newer teams. SMU, obviously, Indiana. You know, like again, teams in Boise State, like teams that we picked some of them. Obviously, Boise State is like a sleeper team to make the playoffs, but teams that either it's been a long time since they've been on this stage, or they've never really been in the bright lights like that. It's exciting to see a lot of new blood.
Yeah, man. I mean, dude, I don't like the Clemson one, but overall, I would say it's pretty darn good. It's not bad. And honestly, I'm just excited to see a big playoff format like this for the first time when it comes to college football, because it's always been bowl games, and then it transitioned to only 4 teams in the college football playoffs, and then now 12 teams. Bro, it just makes the end of the year that much more exciting, and the beginning of next year just that much more exciting.
Yeah. And you still got to mix the bowl games too to kind of whet your appetite a little bit for the playoffs.
Yeah, of course. You got to keep the tradition around for sure. But exactly. Steve, I don't know if you want to make some picks right now, so I'm gonna let you go next. But man,
we got a week. We got a week still.
Okay.
We can. I think next week we can probably go ahead and make our final picks on this one. I think. But all right. So normally it's kind of weird for me over here, because usually I'm always the one that's always the more positive, and everybody else is. I'm going doom and gloom on this one a little bit, man. There's some stuff I don't like. I'm not gonna lie. There's some stuff I don't like. I don't think Boise State should get the bye. I think that they should be in the 12th team. I have no problem with Boise State being in the 12th team.
So who should be in the bye?
Who should be in the bye?
Yeah, if Boise State.
Well, here's what the problem is. Here's where the problem is, and I think that it's the first year the 12 team has done this. It's obviously the first year, so there's some kinks they got to work out. But when the hell did the Mountain West all of a sudden become a relevant conference? So relevant that we give them a bye? That's bullshit. I'm not buying that one. What about the Atlantic or the American? I'm sorry, the American Conference. The American Conference, there's no one represented in this one. So if we're going off of the Power 5, when the hell did the Mountain West also become part of this group that you have to get a bye in there?
Well, who's the American team represented?
Huh?
Who's the top team in the American?
Army. Army had the same record as Boise State. And the only loss in Boise State's the only leg Boise State has to stand on is that they lost by a few points to Oregon. They beat a UNLV team. That was okay, great.
And who was the loss that the Army got?
Notre Dame. That's it.
But that's why, because Oregon's the best team and they only lost by a few points. Bro, Oregon is freaking nasty. Penn State.
Oregon,
Notre Dame is all right.
I'm totally good with Oregon being one. Oregon deserves it. Oregon is the best team.
I'm talking about how Army lost to Notre Dame and Boise State only lost to Oregon by a few points. Like you get what I'm saying?
Okay, fine. I can go with that, I suppose. But like you brought up before, Clemson. I don't like how they valued some of these teams and some teams they didn't. And my point is, I'm saying is that I think next year. This is the first year, so there's going to be some kinks. Next year, they really need to establish which conferences actually matter, because right now, it's basically there's not enough representation of the other conferences if you're going to put in one team from the Mountain West and no one from the American. The American used to bid an automatic bid whenever this was the 14 playoff, right? So, and here's my other problem. Here's my other problem with this as well. And I've had this. What's that?
I said, tell that to UCF.
Exactly. That's that right. And so here's my other problem, and I've had this problem with Notre Dame for quite a long time. Notre Dame is independent. That is not fair at all. They're in the ACC and every other thing except football. So realistically, Notre Dame didn't have to play a conference championship, and they automatically get a bid in off of what?
Yeah,
and they had one of the worst losses of the year. They lost to Northern Illinois.
I think it should be the teams, the top 12 teams with all the conferences combined with the best records and the most points scored. I think that's how you should be to get it.
I could go with you on that. I think what I just need the committee to explain a little bit more and be a little bit more consistent on is what conferences actually matter. Because
all of them should. If not, what are we doing?
Fine. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm totally fine with that. If you have to, if you're going, you have to choose which conferences though. And hear me out. What I'm saying here is that, like, so we have our big ones. You have the SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and then it used to be the American. Now apparently it's the Mountain West, and that might change next year. So that's where I think the confusion is starting to come in here a little bit is how did Boise State get in? Arizona State won the Big 12. But Arizona State is got a bye in there, yes. But there was talks that Arizona State might not even make it in. That's my problem with Boise State. I think Boise State, if you want to put them in, fine. They could be one of the best at-large teams. Fine. Put them in the 12 spot, put them in whatever spot in there. But the fact they're getting a first-round bye, and if you look at the schedule here too, they're getting the easier conference here. They're getting the easier play. Oregon has the harder play. They're getting Ohio State or Tennessee, who is way better than anything that are besides Oregon. I guess they did play them. But you see what I'm saying here, though? How is that working out for Oregon, who did win overall, who was number one almost the entire year? They have to play one of the top teams in here. But Arizona State here also gets maybe the 12. Why wouldn't they switch that around to where Oregon should be getting the 12 if they win?
Yeah, no, it's definitely.
See what I'm saying?
I feel like when it comes to this, right, and it's not just this year. I think it was the previous years of the college football players and even the bowl games. I think it's all really popularity contest at the end. Which team is gonna bring in the most views? Obviously, they got to do it to a certain point. Because if a team has 4 losses, you can't put them in this. You can't put them into the end. You can't put them in a bowl game. But if they're away by 1 loss, they're gonna try to fit them in there like they try to do at Alabama.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, again, it should be all the conferences, the top 12 teams with the top 12 records plus total points. That's how I feel it should be.
Yeah, I'm totally in. That's what I agree with you as well. I think it should be the winners of the conferences.
Yep.
I just want them to verify which conferences they actually are looking at, because there's plenty of FBS conferences that they're not talking about at all. But that's all I'm getting at, is that make it a little bit more clear which ones actually matter. If you're going to make it the power, because it was the group of 5 is what they called it, and Mountain West was damn sure not in it. And now, so are they going to call it the Power 6? And then those 6. If you want to include them in there, fine. That's cool. Give me some clarity on it. And then the rest of the 6 at large, figure that out from there. But I don't think that Boise should be getting a bye.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I will say this as well, like the amount of the conference realignments over the last 5-10 years has really thrown a wrench in all of this, because we used to have the Power 5, which was, like you said, SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, Pac-10 when it used to be that. But then, and then, like you said, you had the group of 5. I always thought that doing something where you have all Power 5 conferences are represented, and then you have one group of 5 champion that's represented, and then after that, it's at large. But, obviously now we can't really do that because, you've got Texas now playing in the SEC. And
right, I was about to say, to piggyback of what you're saying here, the top 4 teams in there, 2 of the 4 weren't even in the same conference they were in last year.
Yeah, and then on top of that, now you have the Pac-12. That's the Pac-2. Like, what are we
right? Doing? In which the Pac-12 is actually trying to rebuild and become again. So granted, they're going to be probably 6 teams or something along those lines. But
this makes sense. The University of South Florida being in the Pac-12, make that make sense.
Yeah, no. It doesn't. It doesn't. And I mean, you can go back to the conference realignments, and there's a lot of different things you can go with this. But I just think that the committee needs to be a little bit more clear on which conferences actually are going to be your champions. That's going to be your top 6, or expand it. We'll see how the 12 works, but maybe expand it, and then you can fit a few more teams in or something maybe. But I just think that they need to be a little bit more transparent on which conferences are going to get these automatic bids. That's all.
They actually make these realignments make sense.
That and make damn Notre Dame play football at a damn conference.
Yeah,
that's frustrating.
I think the independents need to join a conference. Like,
yeah,
seriously, like, everybody else has to. Like, you.
It's ironic. It's ironic. The only sport Notre Dame doesn't do it in is football. And how many times have they benefited from going into the championship games and getting their ass handed to them every single time? But yet they get in because they don't have to take that win or loss of going to a conference championship. They just go in because they're Notre Dame. That's not fair either.
If the military schools can be in a conference, Notre Dame can be in a conference.
Agreed. Right.
They're not that special.
Right. And I thought Army should have had at least a chance to get in, maybe even at the 12th spot or so, something like that. I don't think they would have won. It just would have been, I think, a good thing for them to get in because they are a conference champion and they're not getting any kind of love for it. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, the Bucks are running away with this.
Oh, yeah. Quick update now. It's 78-70.
Giannis has 5 blocks.
Oh,
that turns out he's good.
That boy,
well,
he's trying to win. That's what's going on. He's trying to win.
Cup. Well, I mean, when you're going up against most of the guys on the Magic are like it's between like 6'4" and 6'10". You don't really have a lot of freaks that stand out above that can actually that can elevate above Giannis. So it's like, yeah, good luck with that.
All right. Well, are you guys good with the conference championships thing? I think next week we'll make our make our own bracket, kind of our own picks, kind of thing. We'll come up with some fun games on how we can do this. Maybe pick a name out of the hat or something. We'll come up with something kind of fun. Everybody play along. We're gonna make a ESPN predictor kind of thing. If anybody wants to join on there, be a part of the show. We'll make our own picks. You guys can compete against us, and we'll give you a shout out. You can come on the show and get your kudos while you can, man.